Thanks so much for coming out this evening. My name is Golan Levin. I'm director of the Frank-Ratchye Studio for Creative Inquiry. We are the research laboratory of the College of Fine Arts here at Carnegie Mellon, where we support atypical, anti-disciplinary, and interinstitutional research at the intersection of art, science, technology, and culture. It's my great pleasure to open up this evening's lecture presentation by our fall 2014 artists in residence, Lauren McCarthy and Kyle McDonald. They're both with us for about a month while they're working on a project that they will talk about and which some of you are involved in, I'm pleased to say. They will be properly introduced by a graduate student, Isla, from the School of Art, but I want to give a couple quick announcements and sort of some thank yous before they totally get started this evening. So first of all, this lecture this evening is presented in collaboration between the Studio for Creative Inquiry and the Carnegie Mellon University School of Fine Arts, School of Art rather, lecture series. And the residency that Kyle and Lauren have is actually funded by a grant from the Andy Warhol Foundation, which we received in collaboration with the Scilab Usable Privacy and Security Laboratory over in the School of Computer Science. That's directed by Professor Lori Craner. I want to thank her for collaborating with me on applying for this grant. The studio and CUPS have a grant from the Warhol Foundation to support art that's investigating sort of art after Snowden, if you will, art in relationship to issues of privacy, security, surveillance, anonymity, identity, and big data aggregation. And Kyle and Lauren, whose work spans these topics of identity and surveillance and new media and big data, are really working at the forefront in this way. With that, I think that's my last slide, and I'm going to now invite Isla up to briefly introduce Kyle and Lauren.
Thanks, Golan. Okay, so I've been looking at Kyle and Lauren's work, and I've been thinking a lot about the movie Her, because there's that scene where the main character, Theo, finds out that his operating system slash girlfriend slash lover has been virtually seeing other people. It's actually 641 other people. And it's a really interesting scene. I'm still thinking about it. I think because the most interesting part is that despite Scarlett Johansson supposedly having all these deep social relationships with 641 other people, her character is so boring. And so as I see it, Lauren McCarthy and Kyle McDonald are artists and programmers who are building a much more complex character for the notion of software as it relates to humans than I think Spike Jonze could have conceived of. And Lauren and Kyle's work, in their work, software becomes a medium that has the power to create new social forms, drawing attention to the way in which we build and reflect our identity and our relationships by means of media. Their projects, collaboratively and as individual artists, include applications, immersive experiences, mediated performance, and virtual tools that manifest the ways in which technology affects our existence as social, or at times antisocial, beings. Both Lauren and Kyle work and code openly, providing generous resources for other artists and programmers. Amongst numerous accolades, one or the other of them or the two of them together has at some point worked on projects at LACMA, the Japan Media Arts Festival, Ars Electronica, the Met, etc. The lists go on their websites. And I even noticed includes Thomas Jefferson's home, Monticello. Both of them have worked at ITP at Tisch, been residents at Eyebeam, and they're both currently residents at the studio. Neither of them are operating systems. They're real people, although I saw that thing and I'm like, maybe they are operating systems. Please join me in welcoming Lauren McCarthy and Kyle McDonald.
Hi.
This is us. We got this excellent quote from Golan on Twitter earlier, and we felt that we had to, honor the quote, frame ourselves nicely with some text beneath a nice ampersand. But this is really what we're like. This is what's really going on. I think I just died, actually. Lauren's getting me turned back on again.
Press this power button.
Yeah. We were talking about kind of collecting data and visualizing the most intimate aspect of our physiological state right now with you, which would be our heart rate. That's the most that we can communicate at this moment. So now you can see this is where we are right now. Lauren's at 60 beats per minute. I'm dialing into the matrix at this moment. And let's see, where are we? My heart's beating again. I don't know, I'm getting really nervous now.
Maybe we'll see something soon. In the meantime, I just wanted to say thanks, Isla, for the intro. And also thank you to Golan and the Studio for Creative Inquiry, and to Lori and Cups for having us. We've been here for 3 weeks, and we have one more, and we've been having a really great time.
Yeah, and I'm really nervous.
I am too. My heartbeat is normally about 40. Anyway. Okay. Before we start that, so I just wanted to start with a project that I made a few years ago. I was thinking about how a lot of times we have apps on our phone or we have technologies, and it's almost like they're kind of telling us how to behave. They're telling us how we should interact with people. And so I wanted to try and make an app that didn't tell you how to behave, but asked you to try and figure it out for yourself, or kind of challenged you. So yeah, if it wasn't clear, the idea with the app was that you could kind of put in any interaction that you wanted to have, and then it would post to the people around you locally rather than your friends or something. And anyone that wanted to could come up and have this interaction. So rather than trying to find your new best friend or your next date or your next lay, it was really just about this one quick interaction, then you could go on with your lives.
At the same time, this is what I was up to. This is a project called Light Leaks. I've been really obsessed with light and cameras and projectors and computation and computer vision for a while, and this is one of the last projects I made that took advantage of all those things. So this was at a festival in Denmark called Click Festival about 2 years ago now. We used 50 mirror balls and 3 projectors, and we projected onto the mirror balls, and then we figured out where in 3D every single reflection was in the room, so where it was actually hitting all of the walls. And that let us use every reflection as a single pixel in this sort of screen that filled the room. I'm really interested in ways that computers can understand systems that are more complicated than anything that a single human could kind of decode. And in this case, theoretically, you could go through and start labeling all of the reflections and measuring their locations, but it's really a job for a person with an algorithm and some software and a camera to figure it out. And And then about a year ago, earlier this year, yeah, maybe eight or 9 months ago, Lauren and I worked together on a project that's both playing with some of this serendipitous connection and working at this large scale. Instead of 50 mirror balls, we used 50 screens.
Sure. So the idea here was that basically it was an installation at the TED conference, and you would go and you'd tweet, and then you would walk in and you'd be kind of bombarded with all of the content from your Twitter stream. So it was almost like living inside your Twitter stream kind of chaotically. And then about halfway through the experience, it would switch over, and then it would pair you up with someone else at the conference that was kind of most similar to you. And then it would start bombarding you with their stream. So it was sort of like you're inside their head as they're reading Twitter. And then at the end, it would reveal who that person was, so you could go and meet them if you wanted at the conference. And I think we were both really excited about this project. I mean, there was the experience of being in there, but then once people left, they were actually going and meeting up with the people that they had been connected to. And so a lot of our work together, you can see we do very different things, but when we work together a lot, it has to do with thinking about relationships and thinking about the way that we are connected by technology and ways we might kind of hack that or play with it or explore other alternatives.
Yeah. And what are the craziest algorithms you can use to govern people's lives? And maybe that's just me. Another kind of serendipitous connection project I worked on recently was called, actually, Serendipity. Surprise, surprise. This was a project during residency at Spotify. This is a live stream of every time that two people in different places listen to the same song exactly in sync with each other on Spotify. It'll visualize it in real time. And you can kind of listen along with them. As is expected, it's basically all of the worst pop music ever.
Rest in peace, Whitney, pardon me, but I don't think none of these bitches fucking with me. Why the billboard bitch?
Whoops. And then last year, another project to make kind of connections between strangers. I was traveling from a residency in Japan to a very short residency in South Korea. And it was my first time in South Korea, and I was really amazed at kind of how similar and how different the two cultures were between the two countries, because I'd spent a lot of time in Japan before. And that was kind of my reference point. So I really noticed all of the little things that were different and all the things that were the same. But the two cultures actually have a really long history with each other, with trade and with science and with the arts and everything. But they don't always get along really well. And there's a lot of political tension today still. And I wanted to make something that would kind of speak to my experience at seeing both of those sides, and then also to just having friends in both places that, you know, could sometimes be really good friends with each other and then sometimes kind of view each other with a little suspicion. So I made this piece called Sharing Faces, and it was installed in 2 locations, one in South Korea and one in kind of in the countryside in Japan. Yeah.
Are you sure? How sure? Asking the question. I'm just asking the question. You're very sure, yeah? That's good to know.
The concept for this piece was very simple. It was really hard to implement and convince everyone to install this, though. And it took a lot of people to help make this happen. But the basic idea was that you would see a sort of mirror of yourself, but instead of seeing the image from the camera reflected back into you, you would see the image of someone else who had stood in that exact same position, making that exact same expression on their face, but you wouldn't know where they were from, whether they were at the location in Korea or the one in Japan. And the lighting was all worked out, so you really had no indication of who you were looking at. I think standing in front of that piece was a really magical experience.
Is this paused? Yeah. So as Kyle mentions, he has friends in Korea and friends in Japan and friends all over the world in Denmark, and he convinces them to do these installations. And I think that kind of speaks to what a personable and approachable guy he is, and just he's very good at interacting with people. And I think that's kind of what drew me to him, because I'm very not good. And so, that's where kind of I started. And I think this became especially clear to me on my first day of grad school, where I met one of my fellow classmates, and he was all like, "Hi, nice to meet you, let's talk." And I was all like, "Okay, bye." And I kind of took off across the parking lot for not any real reason. I just got nervous. So after I came back and mustered up the courage to face my classmates, I sat down at my desk and I started thinking about, okay, so I'm not so good at talking to people, I'm not bad at hacking, maybe I can kind of hack my way out of this situation. And so I started thinking about things that I didn't do well, or ways I might fit in better. Oop. So this was actually a series, and there was another one that would force me to pay attention when I was talking to people by kind of vibrating violently around the neck, and another one that could detect if I hadn't made body contact with anyone for a while, and then it would start to fade in this static noise into the head so that I couldn't hear or talk to anyone unless I kind of reached out and connected with people. And so I wore all these things, and it was actually much improvement. I made lots of friends. But then I started thinking, this is a little bit hard though, because I have to kind of figure out what the optimal is and write the code and try and get me there. And what if I don't know? And I started thinking, maybe I could get feedback from other people on how I should act or behave. So this was a table I made that basically each person has a foot pedal. And so as they're speaking, they can move it from negative to positive to indicate just how much they're enjoying talking to the other people or enjoying the conversation. And the tabletop would glow or dim, showing an aggregate of the response. So you wouldn't be implicated personally, but you could see if everyone is getting kind of bored. And if it got too boring, it would flash a distress signal so someone could kind of come and try and save the conversation. So when I presented this to people, the feedback was kind of like, oh, that's terrible. I wouldn't want this in my living room or in my kitchen. I don't want this feedback while I'm talking. And I thought that was a really funny comment, because what do we do all day but sit here and kind of try to compose things people will want to hear and then get really excited when everyone expresses that they like it, or maybe even delete it or take it back when not enough people seem like they like it. So that was thinking about the feedback side of things, but then I thought, well, how do I kind of generate what to say? And so I made this next one. Oh, I gotta switch.
And then swipe 4 fingers. Yeah.
So this was ConversaQ.
Hi, how's it going?
It's okay. It's okay. You?
Yeah, I've been better. I know what we need here.
Oh, your eyes are so beautiful.
Thanks. You look really great in green.
Don't suffer through another awkward date. Let the ConversaQ fast track your love life. New travel version can go everywhere you need to be.
I like you.
I like you too.
I am so tired of being me. I wanna be free. I wanna be new and different. Anything I know.
And back. So the commercial was kind of trying to play with this idea of this utopian product, right? But in reality, I worked with this writer and we actually designed cues for this box that would try to, rather than make totally comfortable conversation, actually try to throw things off in a hopefully interesting or a different sort of way. So we were kind of working on different pairings or triplets of words based on how long you've been talking and how much each person is. So then I took this out, I took it around New York City, and I had people actually try using it. And kind of to my amazement, it worked. And it worked not really because of the cues, but because people were saying to me afterwards, I put this box down and I turned it on and I suddenly felt like I could say things I might not normally because people wouldn't know. They might think I had been prompted to. Or it felt like an excuse. It was a license to try something different. And that was kind of a really powerful idea for me, especially thinking about how we're carrying around a piece of technology with us every day. What kind of excuse might it provide to have a more interesting experience rather than just reinforcing the one we have already? So thinking about these ideas of kind of analysis and feedback and how we might optimize our relationships,
Just close to the mic.
Kyle and I got together and made this next one. Is there more you want to say?
Hi Claire, how's
Hey,
school
Mom.
treating ya?
I'm doing okay right now. I'm just kind of annoyed because there's this girl named Stacy in my yoga class who just got pregnant and she won't stop talking about it. And I just feel like she's being really...
Technology has made us more connected than ever. Shouldn't it help us get more from each other?
She just won't stop talking about her pregnancy and what yoga moves that the whole class should not do because she can't.
Us Plus gives suggestions based on speech analysis and facial expressions.
Now it's just everything is... how are you doing, Mom?
Well, actually, things haven't been all that great. I wasn't sure whether to tell you this, but,
More honesty, more balance.
I feel like we're barely communicating, and sometimes it's just not the same. I try to talk to you and you don't respond, and I can't even...
I love you.
It's been so long since you said that.
More connection.
It's looking pretty bleak. And our profit margins fell last quarter. But I think we can turn things around. If we outsource step 4, we should be okay.
We could also get it down 5 cents more if we use cheaper materials in steps 19 and 23, and the public will never know.
I like how you think.
More productivity, more success. Get more out of your conversations. Us Plus.
So obviously we're appropriating a lot of elements of pop tech culture, right? Like the more honesty, more balance, right? That's like what you expect to hear from these commercials and startup advertisements. But this isn't just a kind of thin criticism or like we're not just saying, oh, none of this stuff is ever going to work. We're actually kind of jumping into this pretty headfirst and trying to engage with it both on popular culture's terms and on our own terms, and see what works and what doesn't work. So this is something that actually runs. Like you can go onto Google Hangouts right now and try this, and it is really working. It's using face analysis and linguistic analysis, counting how much time different people are talking, and it's really giving you this feedback. And you had some interesting stories about like this actually working during an interview.
Oh, yeah, so it does actually work. The one catch is that when you actually translate speech to text using kind of your browser, there's a 75% accuracy, which is pretty good, but not great if we're actually analyzing every single word and trying to figure out these qualities. And so I was doing this interview with a reporter, and we're doing it over Us Plus, so she can try it out. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know how this is gonna go, but all right. And so the interview is going pretty well, and she gets this one question, and she's like, but, you know, does this really work? Can you really analyze this? And then kind of at that moment, something popped up that just said, like, stop being such a downer. And then she was like, oh my God, it does work. And she wrote up her article and published it the next day. And the funny thing to me was it was great timing, but it went to show, again, kind of like ConversaQ, people are willing to buy into these things. And that's so much of an experience, right? It has to work to some degree, but then as soon as we hear something about how something might work, we're ready to believe it at face value. And that can be really just as powerful as what it actually does.
Yeah, and I think powerful is a really good word because that shouldn't be a criticism. Just because we're easily persuaded by something that doesn't really work, and we're rational, scientific people, there's a lot to be learned even when you're being irrational. Speaking of the irrational...
Hey, old Breezy, let me show you how to keep the dice rolling when you're doing that thing over there, huh?
Whoops.
Hey, old Breezy, let me show you how to keep the dice rolling when you're doing that thing over there, homie. Let's go! Cause I'm feeling like I'm running and I'm feeling like I gotta get away, better know that I don't and I won't ever stop.
So this...
Just know that you will never flop me. And I know that I gotta be a little cocky. You ain't never gonna stop me. Every time I come in, nigga gotta set it, then I gotta go, and then I gotta get it, then I gotta blow, and then I gotta shut it. Any little thing a nigga think that he be doing, cause it doesn't matter, cause I'm gonna dead it. Then I'm gonna murder everything and anything about a boom, about a bing. I gotta do a lot of things to make it clearer to a couple niggas that I always win, and then I gotta get it again and again and again. And I be doing it today.
Okay. I've been so along with that category of things where here's something a computer can do that a human couldn't do because it's really complex and requires computer vision and analysis and all this stuff. I like applying those things to very human situations, like what's going on with your face when you're talking to someone. Things like this idea of a caricature, like an emotional caricature. What is the our face is what we use as an interface between each other when we're conversing. We read each other's faces. We read emotion from each other's expressions. What happens when you use an algorithm to modify that and make that really strong or really weak? So this idea of a caricature is something Lauren and I are still exploring in an upcoming project for modifying more video chat situations. So that's one idea, working with caricatures. This is another idea. It's called face substitution. This was developed with Arturo Castro, who's at the top left corner there. I'll point to him in a second. This guy. And the idea with face substitution, this is about, I think, 3 years ago now that I wrote this with him. I'll give the rest of this as Brad Pitt, actually. We combined two algorithms, one which was meant for tracking your face, and one which was meant for doing something called image cloning, which is when you're using Photoshop. That one didn't work very well. When you use Photoshop and you try and put one thing on something else, sometimes it'll make a good blend for you. So we're combining those two things. The kind of second step of face substitution is to start looking into identity modification and manipulation. There was this idea from Philip K. Dick called the scramble suit. I think it was, I forget which novel it was in, but I think it was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. The idea was that the scramble suit would allow you to read someone else's face, the expression on their face, without having an idea of what their identity was. So again, back to this idea of expressions being manipulated and modified and used as a medium for communicating intent. So here, this was a kind of quick mock-up, and you can see kind of behind the scenes how it's working. A lot of the way that I work, actually I think we both work this way a lot, is we kind of prototype little ideas on ourselves, take everything that we've learned from our sort of technical background and apply that to sort of creative exploration. We don't try and solve a specific problem necessarily, but we look in a certain thematic direction and explore and see what happens. We pick at our faces and try different things.
Maybe also mention, so Kyle, does these experiments and finds new ways to work with graphics or whatever tool he's working with. But a big part of that is packaging this little algorithm or the code that he writes up and then putting it online and sharing it with people. And so not only can he sit here and look like Brad Pitt, he can put it out there and let anyone else take it, use the code, improve it or change it and build their own projects on it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And at this point, it comes to me so naturally, I even forget about it. But the only reason that I can do things like this is actually because I'm part of a much larger scene. We're both part of this much larger scene of people who have kind of a technical and artistic background, and they use both of them together to create a lot of code libraries that they share to accomplish the artistic work that they want to develop. So there's tools like Open Frameworks, P5.js, processing, PD, some other open source tools that people use for making art and music and visuals and all sorts of things. So once you start getting interested in identity and manipulating people's expressions, if you're a troublemaker like me, you start to fall down this path of looking into private, the boundary between private and public, and how, what we share and what we don't share. This is a project called Converse Niche, which I made with Brian House, I think half a year ago, and I'll show the video. tell you who that is. So this was this came about a year after another project that was kind of accidentally about exploring this boundary between public and private. This other project, that it followed. This earlier project was called People Staring at Computers. A Converse niche is kind of a audio corollary of this one in some ways. With People Staring at Computers, I'll actually play it and talk over it. With People Staring at Computers, I went to the Apple Store in New York, in Manhattan, and I installed software on about 50 machines that would take pictures of people who were in the store and post them to Tumblr in real time every minute. And I got about, I think, 1,000 photos over 3 days. I was really interested in this expression that we have, this kind of neutral expression, which is like, let's see, I'll skip forward to it. This expression. Because I noticed when I was using my computer, I was taking photos of myself over 2 days. Every minute I was taking a photo of myself, and I saw that I always had that same expression, and I wanted to see if it was just me or more than me. So I installed the software, and I found out it was actually everyone. Everyone has this same expression on their face all the time. I thought this was really interesting. This said to me something about how we interface with each other using this new technology that we have around us, that we've kind of lost some aspect of our communication, that we have kind of muted our face because it's not really necessary for a lot of the communication we have now. I could be emailing someone, texting someone, whatever, but I'm not using my face. And actually, from a sort of psychological, physiological perspective, there's a big problem with this because there's a lot of chemicals that are released as you move your face. There's a lot of things that moving your face does to your body. And seeing this made me wonder, what are we doing to our body with these interfaces? How are these interfaces changing the feeling of interacting with each other? Apple wasn't as interested in this. They actually just stopped by my apartment at 8 a.m. 2 days after I posted that video. And sorry, they didn't stop by. The Secret Service stopped by. They sent the Secret Service. And they confiscated my laptop for 3 months. And they sent cease and desist requests for all the photos that I posted online. And that made it really difficult to talk about the project for a while. But eventually, the EFF came to my came to my rescue. And they helped me out a lot. They connected me with a lawyer in Manhattan that asked the Secret Service very nicely to give me my laptop back. And they told the Secret Service that, don't worry, this guy's just an artist, not part of an international ring of super hackers trying to steal people's identity. I know his work deals with identity, but that's not what he's trying to steal. And they bought it, and I got my laptop back. So let's I'll give it to you.
Sure. So I think both Kyle and I have this kind of interest in experimenting with our own lives, and as you can see with that story. And so this is a performance called Social Turkers that I did about a year ago, year and a half. It's kind of also along this theme of thinking about how the technology changes us or changes how we are able to exist as a person in this world. Before I start, a brief aside. I was really interested in this tool or this website I had found called Amazon Mechanical Turk. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the idea is that it's an Amazon service. You go to the website, you can pay some small amount of money to a bunch of people to do a task for you. So it's often used for tasks that humans are really good at, but computers could be bad at. Maybe like, look at this image and decide if it's pornographic or not. So, you could use that for tagging YouTube videos or something. You pay each person a small amount of money. And so it's basically an interface or an interaction system that you can log on and interface with. And so I thought this was kind of a crazy idea, this interface for people. And I wanted to see how I could kind of plug that into my life. Simultaneously, I was having this crisis in my dating life where I wasn't having any. So I tried to see what I could do there. I don't know if you can all read the text, but basically I went on a series of dates, and while I was on the date, I would take my phone and I'd kind of set it in my purse discreetly, and I would stream video from the date while I was with the person to the web. And then I would hire Mechanical Turk workers to watch the stream, and for 25 cents they'd watch for a couple minutes, and they'd decide what I should say or what I should do or whether I should leave or go or kiss him or what. And then when they voted or they inputted what they thought I should do, it would come to my phone and I would get a message and I would have to follow that instruction on the date. So these are some of the suggestions. Some of the Turks would write their kind of observations about the scenario. So yes, I had stumbled upon the way to live, and I wanted to kind of try and share this opportunity with other people. So the system I had set up was super hacked together. Sometimes it would break, and I'd have to say, I have to go to the bathroom and run into the bathroom and kind of SSH into my server and start messing with the code and then come back out with a refresh. But I wanted to try and make this, imagine a scenario where we all just use this sort of thing, use our networked presence to kind of augment our identity in real time. And so I took the idea of social Turkers and I made it into an app that anyone could use in any situation. And at the same time, sort of playing with this idea of, startup culture and just how outrageous some of those ideas were or are. So this was kind of the trailer for the app.
So do you,
go ahead. No, you go.
When was the last time you really wished for something?
Oh, you know what? I always kind of wanted to go to all 50 state capitals.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, how many have you gone to?
25. 26th, when I go to Carson City next month, and then Olympia, Salem, Sacramento on the West Coast.
CrowdPilot is an app that lets you crowdsource your conversations. Bring along your friends or invite strangers to help you in any situation, like a date, a meeting, a family gathering, or just let them figure out what's going on. Your CrowdPilots listen in and give you live suggestions of what to do or say. Relax, take control, take a chance, get CrowdPilot.
So this app went live and there was a great response. And by great, I mean pretty outraged. Oh, I skipped ahead. Well, here's the app. So you can see it was fully designed. It was a real experience and it was not a prototype. And so this this was from the website, some of the screens. Anyway, the response was outraged. It was kind of blowing up, and people were just weighing in, saying, this is the creepiest thing, this is the saddest thing, is this the end of the world, is this the end of humanity? I don't know what we're going to do, we're all going to hell. There was a petition to the Obama. I didn't even really understand what this meant, but I think if like 999,000 more people signed it, then Obama was gonna make a comment on CrowdPilot. The other thing that's really interesting people are trying to figure out, is this an art project? Is it a startup? They're kind of like looking me up saying, well, I think she's an artist, but I don't know. And then it was on Fox News.
Well, if you can't beat them, join them. Thanks to the new phone app CrowdPilot, the NSA is no longer the only snooping game in town. Now you are. To tech guru Cassie Slane on how it all works. What are we talking about here?
Well, I wish I had this app back in my dating days.
It's weird. It's just very, very weird.
This is actually tempting the evil right there. No, but this is actually a great idea, because what it's doing is it's making another form of what we're already using social media in its best sense for.
Wait a minute.
So Golan actually had a former student here today who now works at the NSA, so I think we're gonna collaborate some more. The other thing was that people were just seeing it as a startup. And part of this was, while Kyle framed the Conversnitch project as this is an art project asking some questions, I said it's an app, you know? It's an art project too, but it wasn't an app posing as an art project, or I don't know. Anyway, it was both things, and I think that's a line that I really like to play with. Some things that really touch real life and aren't in a gallery or aren't prefaced or framed as an art project necessarily. The other thing that's really interesting to me is that there seemed to be sort of this gender divide where, 90% of the people weighing in on Twitter saying this was horrible were men. Meanwhile, I was seeing tweets or getting emails that says, like, as a socially anxious person, CrowdPilot doesn't sound as terrible as you're all making it out to me. So this is one woman. Someone sent me an email. Okay, thanks, Lauren. I will give it a try. I hope you're successful. Don't pay any attention to the stupid mail-written tech reviews. I'm 34 and single in New York City and think it's filling a needed void. This is from another woman. So that was just kind of curious to see. And then finally, I think the most important thing for me was just people were using it, and that was kind of crazy and amazing. And some of the things people would post and ask help for, help me convince my roommate to move out, or I'm separated from my wife for 4 years and we're getting divorced. How can I help? How can I talk about this, or help me listen in? And so that's a big thing for me, is to put something out in the world and like have people actually try it, have people actually interact with it.
Along those lines of kind of giving up your identity temporarily to some crowd of people, giving up your actions to other people. This is a project from December last year called Going Public. Right as Twitter was announcing their IPO, which is where they turn into a company that's owned by individuals, a lot of individuals, instead of just by a few people. I decided I was also going to go public on that same day. I was going to make sure that anyone could tweet from my Twitter account, even if it wasn't me. And the way I implemented this was I took advantage of a little-known feature on Twitter that allowed anyone to direct message me. They have since gotten rid of this feature, but what would happen is if you started the tweet with a tilde when you direct messaged me, then it would actually just get scraped by a script and then posted to my timeline like I had posted it. And I was really interested in this idea of like what, our brain is kind of connected to our body. We can't separate like how we identify with ourself from the way that we act in the world. Maybe things like CrowdPilot are taking a step in that direction of trying to separate your identity from your body, or diluting it or expanding it, any of those things. But online, it's actually really easy in a way. The only thing that separates you online from you like here is a password, and because you know the password, then you get to act as that person online. If you just give someone that password, then they're going to be a jerk and change it, so you can't do that. But you can set up kind of some kind of hacks like this that will allow you to get things like this posted to your timeline as you. Some people were, well, I should just say it went kind of crazy for about a month. I gained a lot of followers. I lost a lot of followers. There were about, I think, 3,000 tweets over that month from just tons of people who thought it would be funny to post lots of swear words and punctuation marks. But then some of it was really good. Like, some people tried to get me to do things by posting things as if I had said them. Like, you know, I'm extending the experiment period, or some people were playing games. Like, I really like that one at the bottom. Someone started a game of Space Invaders, and then someone else followed up, you know, with the next step. Some of it's just like kind of glitch art on the top, or again, like more people trying to get me to do certain things on the bottom. So I thought that was really interesting. And as this was going, I had a very unusual, like, disconcerting and then kind of freeing disconnection from my online identity. I think after this project, I started to feel like this avatar, this account, it wasn't necessarily me anymore in the way that I'd been treating it before. And I felt like I could do more, I could be more, I could kind of explore things in a way I hadn't before. So it was really scary and also really freeing, and I like that. Here's one we worked on together. I think we only have a little time left, so I think we have this, and then, right, okay, yeah. So this is Noodle. Say hi to Noodle. Hi, Noodle. Noodle is a collaboration between Lauren and I that we worked on at the Autodesk Pier 9 in San Francisco. They have a residency program there for artists who work with tools and technology. It's amazing space. So Noodle is about this big, and it's got a little computer inside of it that allows it to be the body for a Mechanical Turk worker. Kind of similar to CrowdPilot, except instead of someone being it's kind of similar to Social Turkers, but instead of Lauren being the body for the Mechanical Turkers, Noodle is the body. And Noodle has a microphone, a camera, a little display on the top. I don't know, do we have any other photos? No. It has a little display on the top, some speakers, and it's wirelessly connected. It's got a huge battery inside, so you can just sit it somewhere for a while. And the idea is you basically ask Noodle to do something for you, like this. You kind of fill out a little form. You just connect to its, to its wireless, and then you fill out a form saying, okay, Noodle, when the audio, and you click on a drop-down, detects a loud noise, another drop-down. First, use the camera to take a photo, and then decide the answer to this yes-no question. Are they friendly? And if the answer is yes, do this. If the answer is no, do that. And you can kind of keep filling it out. And you can basically ask Noodle to do whatever you want in a very natural way, the same way you would ask your friend, except in this case, your friend is actually hundreds of people on Mechanical Turk, and they're all getting these instructions and then evaluating it for you and then acting on it. So yeah, this was, this is, I think, kind of fits in that same category as like Going Public and Social Turkers and CrowdPilot, looking at ways that we can take our actions and kind of reassign them to other people, or get our actions reassigned by other people.
I think it's also always a question for us when you use these services like Mechanical Turk, or maybe something like TaskRabbit, or anything where there's sort of an interface between people. How does that change your understanding of the people on the other end? So if we see this little machine or this little robot, the catch is that it's not just a robot. There are a whole bunch of people kind of embedded in its intelligence. So how do we think about that? So finally, we just wanted to talk really briefly about the project that we're working on right now. And so you saw our heartbeats at the beginning, and we're both wearing these wristbands. So I started thinking about this kind of years ago. There was a group at the Media Lab, and then it became a spin-off called F.A.T. But they would make these wristbands that could kind of detect when someone was getting stressed out. They would use this with children with autism spectrum disorders. And so the idea was that maybe in a classroom setting or with parents or something, their wristband could start flashing when they're feeling very stressed or like they're about to kind of have an outburst, and then the teacher or parent could go and alleviate or change the situation. And I thought, well, I want one of those things. I want I want a flashing light so people can know. And in general, recently, I think there's been this huge trend towards this kind of quantified self thing where we measure our steps, we measure how many calories we eat, how many cigarettes we smoke, how much movement we have in bed while we're having sex.
Maybe not everyone does that.
Yeah, only sometimes. So the project that we're doing here is called People Keeper, and we won't say too much about it, except basically we're looking at what happens when you try to correlate your emotional and physical response to the people that you spend time with, and could you kind of auto-manage or auto-optimize your social life based on this. So we've been working on developing an app, and then this week we're running the first trial of this. It's kind of a performance, or the first beta test with some of the students here at CMU. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I do want to say just a little more, which is the basic idea behind People Keeper is that once we have some idea about how you're feeling around different people, then maybe we can manage your life for you better than you can. And that's kind of the experiment that's going on with these people right now, is they're being subject to sort of automated understanding from certain physiological artifacts that their body is producing that are being detected by these bracelets, and then we're trying to manage their life for them. And I think for me, one of the most interesting parts of this is the potential for a certain type of feedback. There's, from quantified self, there's this idea of like gamification. Maybe if you turn something into a game, it will motivate you differently. But I think more interesting than turning something into a game is just getting really honest feedback about something that you maybe don't have enough insight to really see truly for yourself. And sometimes I think when we have machines in the way, if we trust them a little bit, then we can learn some things about ourselves too.
And I think it's always a question with some of this work. People say, are you serious? Is this a joke? Is this hell? Or is this like an optimistic vision? And I think it's a little bit of all of that. And so maybe you think, oh, this sounds creepy or weird. But just as Kyle was saying, what if the computer actually could understand better than you could? What then? What if the crowd pilots actually do improve your conversation? Maybe you feel weird about the idea, but if it actually makes your relationships or your interactions better, how do you negotiate that? I don't think it's just black and white. Is that all? Yeah. All right.
Thank you.